Okay, now we're almost finished. We've only got question 12 left. The battery ran out. So let's look at question 12 and then take the discussion questions. Question 12 is one about the number of women having access to internet. Decreases by about 80% from the years 55 to 64. Well, if we look at the years 55 to 64, what can we say about them? 55 to 64, the women, there was about 76% women had access to internet in that age group, compared with the 10% women that we know had access in the 75-year plus. So the percentage change, again using our percentage change formula, the difference divided by the one we're comparing it to, which was the original one, the age group 55 to 64. Times 100%. So we'd get 76 minus 10 divided by the 76 times 100. Again, we've got our calculators here, so we'd end up with a percentage of about 86%. So 86% would be the percentage change, and the statement 12 is that they're saying it would decrease by 80%, which is not true. False. We have calculated that it should be 86%, almost 90% rather than 80%. So we can say that the proportion of women that have access to internet decreases by 86% in the age group 55 to 64 compared with 75-year plus. Then we have some discussion questions here next. And we can look straight away at this diagram. It says, if you look at both diagrams, from the two diagrams, and this is discussion point B on the national test, it says, from the two diagrams, can you draw a conclusion that in 2007, the same number of men and women have been questioned in 2007? And here we can only see the percentage of men that had access to internet and the percentage of women. It doesn't tell us how many women there are. But if we were to work out what the average percentage was of the number of men, which we can say here looks about 37%, and the number of women, which is about 10%, if we take the average of those two, add them together and divide by 2, we get 47% divided by 2, which would be 23.5%. So if there'd been the same number of men and women, we would have expected 23.5% of the population of men and women asked, independent of gender, we would expect 23.5% of them to have access to internet. If we go back and look at the previous graph and look in the year 2007 and say, okay, was it about approximately 23.5% in 2007 that had access to internet? Because if this number was the same in the previous graph, we'd expect the answer here to be about 23.5%. And if we look at 2007, 10, 20, it's slightly less than 25%. I'd probably say 24 or so. Yeah, it actually does look like it was we know that it was the same number of men and women, pretty close to that have been asked, because we got the approximately 23.5% that we were expecting. So we can say, yes, the same number of women and men have been asked in 2007 by comparing those two graphs. That was discussion question B. Discussion question A was, which of these graphs has had the biggest increase? Well, if we're wondering which one has had the biggest increase, we could look at the slope, the percentage increase, the biggest increase. We'd get that quite easily from the slope, the beginning to the end. Which one has the steeper graph, the steeper gradient? Well, we can see quite clearly that it would be this one. If we'd like to calculate it using our math skills, we could take the percentage increase, the difference between these two percentages. So we're saying that it should be the 65 to 74-year-olds. Let's look at that. We have a percentage here of about 66, minus the original percentage, about 17. Let's call it 16 to get some nice numbers. Divided by the original percentage, which was 16. So we'd get 50 divided by 16 times 100, which would be approximately 240%. So the percentage increase of this age group, it had the steepest graph, but if we work out the percentage, it also had the largest percentage increase, and we'd expect this to give us the largest change. We've got the small number down here and the biggest change up here. So the answer to that one, which age group had the biggest increase in access to internet over the time period, well, it was the 65 to 74-year-olds. What can be said about the coming years? That's discussion question C. Well, if we look in the coming years, what we can say is, I think that the increase in internet will continue to rise quite drastically for the older age group. But the younger age group is almost getting very close to 100%. It's going to stabilize there and stay just maybe below the 100% line or even reaching it. What we could also say is as these people get older, they're going to continue using internet, and they will be pushing up the data from these older years as these 64-year-old people actually become 74-year-old people become 75. They'll push up all the statistics for the 75-year-olds. So over the recent years, I'd expect quite a big increase in internet access for the older people. We can't actually say anything, we don't know. Maybe everybody in Sweden would stop using internet tomorrow. It's a possibility that we might not have access to internet in the year. We can only see the trend. We can see if it continues like this, which one would expect. We wouldn't expect internet to suddenly disappear overnight for everybody. So we can discuss the trend, and we can discuss that as this age group becomes older, it will increase the trend even faster. They'll probably continue using internet. Based on the diagram, what can we say that in 2003 the number of people who had access to internet in the 25 to 34-year-old age group was twice as big as the 65 to 74. Well, if we look at the 25 to 34-year age group, which is the triangular one here, in 2003, here we are there, and compare it with the 65 to 74, which is here. Here we've got approximately 32%, and here we've got approximately 82%. So it's a lot more than twice as big at the moment. But we can again only compare these percentages if the same number of people that in this age group as this age group have been asked. So we need to know that the number of people in both of the age groups was the same to be able to compare those percentages. And this is how we would work on an oral paper, understanding and making sure that we show that we've understood the difference between just reading data off the graph, following from the year up to the right graph, making sure that you're following the correct graph according to reading the key correctly to the graph, understanding how the gradient works to calculate the change in the y-axis divided by the change in the x-axis to give you the gradient and the slope of the graph, being able to differentiate between the change in percentage points, which is just one percentage minus the other percentage, or the percentage change, which is the difference divided by the original times 100%. All of these concepts are very important in maths when it comes to being able to read graphs and understand data correctly. So, good luck!